I let the alien woman leave. Days later, she came back with a gift. Evan Hale stood at the edge of the repair bay, wiping oil from his hands onto a rag that had seen better days. The station smelled of metal, fuel, and the faint tang of ozone. Out here at the outer rim, life moved slowly, measured in the hum of engines and the occasional crash of a drifting satellite. Most of the people who came to him were merchants, scavengers, or smugglers. Few were friendly, fewer still grateful. That was fine with Evan. He had no need for company. Solitude suited him. The day had been long and dull, the way days out here often were. He had finished repairs on an old cargo freighter and was readying the bay for the next job. A flicker of movement outside caught his eye. He squinted through the dusty viewport. At first, he thought it was debris drifting past the station. But it moved differently, intentional, fluid, alive. Evan's instincts told him to ignore it, but curiosity got the better of him. He grabbed a small blaster, more for reassurance than use, and stepped outside into the low-gravity void. There, caught in the pull of the station's gravity field, was a small escape pod. It looked battered, scorched along the edges, its hull scratched and dented. Lights flickered weakly inside. He activated the docking clamps and hauled it in. Whoever or whatever was inside had found their way to his station. That was unusual, dangerous even. He pried open the hatch. Inside, slumped in the corner, was a figure. She was tall, lean, and unlike any human Evan had ever seen. Her skin shimmered with a faint silver-blue hue, and her eyes, large and round, were the deep violet of a nebula. Her hair flowed like liquid silver around her shoulders. She looked fragile, but there was something in her posture, an alertness, a grace that spoke of someone not used to weakness. Her breathing was shallow, uneven, and she had a thin line of blood at the corner of her mouth. Evan crouched beside her. "Hey," he said softly, careful not to startle her. "You're safe. You're on a human station. Nobody's going to hurt you here." She flinched at his voice but did not scream. That was a good sign. Most of her kind, from the few encounters humanity had recorded, reacted aggressively to humans. Fear was one thing, attack was another. She let him reach for her, letting him gently check her injuries. Her arm was bruised, maybe broken, and her leg had deep gashes. She had clearly survived a crash, or worse. Evan worked quickly, using what medical supplies he had. A medic kit from old space missions, bandages, antiseptic, pain relievers. He had no formal training, but he had seen enough violence to know how to keep someone alive. All the while, she watched him, her large violet eyes wary but curious. Why?" she finally whispered, her voice melodic, strange but understandable. "Why help me?" Evan paused. Most people assumed kindness was weakness. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said simply. "I don't expect anything, I don't want anything, just survive." Her eyes narrowed slightly, studying him. She tilted her head, a subtle gesture as if trying to decipher a puzzle. "Humans, strange," she said. There was a hint of admiration, though she did not allow it to show fully. He finished tending to her wounds and helped her stand. Her weight was light, but her limbs trembled. He guided her to the small medbay aboard the station. The room was cramped, but it was warm, with supplies stacked in orderly shelves and the faint scent of antiseptic lingering. He handed her water. She drank cautiously, her lips brushing the rim of the cup with delicate precision. Hours passed. She remained quiet, watching him but not asking questions. Evan did not press her. Trust was not earned by force, it was given. By evening, she was stable enough to talk. "I am Salira," she said. "You saved me, human. You should not have." Evan shrugged. "Could say the same for you. You made it here alive. That's enough for me." He meant it. In the outer rim, survival was all that mattered. Anything else was a luxury few could afford. Salira's gaze drifted to the viewport. The stars were bright here, unpolluted by city lights or gas clouds. "You're kind, humans, so small, yet your courage is unusual," she said. Evan laughed softly. "Courage, maybe, or maybe just stubbornness. We humans, we don't like giving up." He studied her for a moment. "Where are you from, and what were you doing in that pod?" She hesitated. "I escaped," she said finally. "My people, they would take me back. I could not return." "Your people?" Evan raised an eyebrow. "You're not just a refugee then, you're something more." She did not answer directly. She looked away, her eyes narrowing in thought. Evan let it go. Some truths revealed themselves only when people were ready. The hum of the station, the flicker of lights, the faint vibration of distant engines, everything was peaceful in a way Evan rarely experienced. He liked that. He liked that someone, even someone from another world, could be alive because of his choices. Rest, he said after a long silence. You need it. You'll be stronger in the morning. Morning came slowly. Evan woke first, checking the systems and the docks. Everything was normal, if normal in this place could be called that. Celira stirred, her eyes opening slowly. She looked at him, then around the medbay, her head tilting slightly. You will not demand anything, she asked. Her voice held disbelief. Your help, nothing in return? Evan smiled faintly. I didn't say I was weak, he said. I said I wanted to do the right thing. That's different, she studied him, her gaze piercing. You're kind, human, strange, she repeated, but this time there was a softness in her tone. Hours passed in quiet companionship. She explored the station, asking questions about human life, simple questions about food, repair, travel. Evan answered carefully, not giving too much away. Knowledge was power, and he had learned long ago to share it only as needed. By midday, her strength had returned enough to attempt repairs on her ship. She moved with precision, her fingers long and agile. Evan watched from a distance. She was capable, talented, perhaps more so than most humans he knew. But there was still a hesitance, a wariness in her movements. Why let me go? She asked again as she prepared to leave. Evan shrugged. Because you're not my prisoner, because fear and force are not the same as respect. Because sometimes doing the right thing doesn't need a reward. She looked at him, her eyes wide. Few would dare such kindness. Maybe few survive it either, he said lightly, though a part of him meant it seriously. In his line of work, trust was rare. Kindness rarer still. She nodded slowly, almost imperceptibly. Then she moved to her ship, activating the thrusters. The pod lifted smoothly, its damaged systems holding just enough to escape the gravity well. She paused before leaving. I do not forget this, she said softly. Evan waved. Then don't. Safe travels, Celira. The ship drifted out into the void, a tiny silver streak against the stars. Evan watched it go, expecting nothing more. He returned to the station, cleaned his tools, and prepared for the next day. But he could not shake the feeling that this encounter was not the end. There was a weight in the air, a subtle shift he could not explain. Something had changed. Perhaps the galaxy was too large for one human to notice it, but some events rippled farther than anyone realized. 3 days passed. Evan worked, repaired ships, and listened to the faint chatter of pilots docking and leaving. Life carried on, mundane as always. Then the first sign appeared. A small scout vessel, unmarked, veered past the station. It did not communicate, it did not stop. But it left a trace in the sensors, a subtle disturbance. Evan frowned. Nothing dangerous, not yet, but enough to notice. On the 4th day, the real sign came. A message arrived in the station's network. It was not a standard transmission. It bore no signature or code recognizable to him. Yet he understood immediately someone was here, and it was not alone. A voice spoke through the calm, melodic, and unmistakably alien. Human, Evan Hale, you did not know what you were doing, yet you did it. You chose kindness over fear. You chose freedom over control, and for that you are remembered. Evan froze. He had not expected her. He had not expected a message. Yet here it was, as clear and undeniable as the stars outside. He set the comm aside and stared at the stars. A shiver ran down his spine. He did not know what would come next, but he knew one thing. His life, small as it had seemed, had just been touched by forces far larger than himself. And somehow, he felt that this was only the beginning. The universe, vast and indifferent, had noticed one human who did what was right. Not for credit, not for power, but because it was simply right. And that human was Evan Hale. Evan Hale sat in his small control room, staring at the blinking lights of the station. It had been 4 days since Celira had left, and the comm had returned to the outer rim. Ships came and went, engines humming, cargo shifting, and merchants bartering just like always. But Evan felt it, an unease he could not name. Something had changed. The stars beyond the viewport felt different, as if the universe itself had shifted slightly. He tried to shake it off, returning to his work. A cargo freighter needed repairs on its thrusters, and the routine kept him occupied. Yet every time he heard the faint ping of his sensors, he glanced up, expecting something. By the 5th day, the first message arrived. It was small, subtle, almost imperceptible in the station's communications feed. At first, Evan ignored it. But when it repeated, he leaned forward, eyes narrowing. The message was not standard human code. It was alien, not aggressive, not demanding, just precise, almost polite. Curiosity overrode caution. He opened the comm link. A voice filled the room, melodic, calm, and unmistakably Celira's. You did not know what you were doing, she said. Yet you chose kindness over fear. You chose freedom over control. For that you are remembered. Evan froze. His heart raced and his hands rested on the console. Sailira, he asked, barely a whisper. Yes, the voice replied. I am safe, but there are those who hunt me still. They will come. You must prepare. Evan leaned back, running a hand through his hair. Prepare for what? I'm just a mechanic. She let out a small laugh, a sound that seemed to vibrate with confidence. You are more than that. Your choices echo farther than you know. You have influence, even if you do not see it. The call ended abruptly, leaving Evan staring at the dark screen. Influence, he had saved a life, not a fleet. He had treated a stranger with decency, nothing more. And yet here it was, a ripple across the galaxy he had no control over. He spent the next hours preparing. Supplies were checked, systems were calibrated, weapons maintained. It was precaution, not anticipation. He hoped for nothing, feared nothing, but instinct told him to be ready. That evening, a small scout ship appeared at the edge of the station. It was sleek, elongated, with metallic panels that reflected starlight. No markings identified its origin, but Evan recognized the design immediately. It was Sailira's people. The alien patrols, known for their precision and aggression, had arrived. The hatch opened. Two figures stepped out, armored, tall, and elegant. Their faces were hidden beneath reflective helmets. They moved with perfect coordination, every step calculated. Evan's blaster rested lightly in his hands, not because he expected to use it, but because he needed something to hold. Human, one of the patrols said, voice modulated and formal. Where is she? Evan stayed calm. She left. She is gone. I do not know where. The patrols studied him, scanning every inch of the station. Their sensors were sharp, designed to detect lies, fear, and concealment. Yet Evan met their gaze evenly, showing nothing he did not mean to. You hide her, the second voice said. You have aided her. That is unusual for your species. I didn't hide anyone, Evan said. She was my guest. She needed help. She left on her own. I did what I thought was right. The patrols exchanged a silent signal. Their leader tilted its head, studying Evan carefully. Your honesty is surprising. Few humans act without fear or greed. Few survive it. Evan shrugged. I'm not most humans, and I didn't act for survival. I acted because it was the right thing to do. The patrols paused, as if considering this. Then, after a tense silence, they retreated. Their ship lifted off, engines humming softly, leaving Evan alone with the stars. He exhaled slowly, his pulse still fast. For a moment, he wondered if he had done the right thing. But he knew he had. Days passed. Rumors began to circulate in the nearby systems. Merchants spoke quietly of a human who had interfered with a patrol of the alien race and survived. Traders whispered about his station being a place of safety, though none understood why. Evan tried to ignore it. He fixed engines, replaced worn panels, and kept his life simple, yet the feeling of being watched never left. On the seventh day, it happened. A ship, unlike any he had seen before, dropped out of hyperspace near his station. It was large, elegant, and undeniably powerful. Lights along its hull pulsed with energy, a silent warning of its capability. And when it opened communication, the familiar melodic voice returned. Human, Sailira said, I am here. Evan felt a rush of relief mixed with apprehension. Sailira, he said, you shouldn't have come back, it's dangerous. I am not alone, she replied, but you have nothing to fear. You have acted with honesty and courage, that matters. It matters far more than you can imagine. She appeared on the holo display, standing tall, regal, and commanding. There was a subtle shift in her aura, a presence that demanded respect. She was no longer the injured refugee. She had transformed, her grace and intelligence amplified by her position. What do you want? Evan asked cautiously. Sailira's eyes softened. To show you what your choice has done, you did not know, but your actions caused ripples. You challenged expectations, Evan Hale. You chose mercy when none was expected. That is rare. The words sank deep into Evan's mind. He had acted without thought for reward, without thought for recognition. And yet, here it was, acknowledgement from a being of immense power. Her ship shifted closer, lowering its docking clamps. I have a gift for you, she said. Not wealth, not technology, something far more valuable. Evan frowned, uneasy. I don't want gifts. I only helped because it was right. Her smile was soft, almost sad. That is why this gift is yours. It is recognition of your humanity, the choice to act without expectation, without fear, without demand. That is rare. That is powerful. She gestured, and the station's sensors lit up with readings Evan had never seen. Alien codes, ancient and complex, flowed across his displays. He realized slowly, this was a legal codex, a declaration recognized across her people's civilization. By her authority, humanity, through his action, had been granted a form of protection. You did this? Evan stammered. Celira shook her head. No, you did it. I only carried it forward. The galaxy is harsh, unforgiving, but your choice has changed how humans will be seen. Your mercy, your courage, your integrity, they are now recorded, remembered, and respected. Evan sat back, overwhelmed. A simple act of kindness, and it had transformed something far larger than himself. He had never sought fame or power. He had only sought to do right by someone in need. And now the galaxy itself would see humanity differently. The next few hours passed in silence. Evan tried to understand the implications. Traders would no longer fear humans. Patrols would hesitate. Diplomats would reconsider their attitude, and above all, one being, Celira, had carried forward his simple act into something monumental. Finally, she stepped closer, her eyes locking with his. You must understand something, she said softly. Your choices matter. Even when you think they do not, even when you are alone, even when the universe seems indifferent, that is the strength of your kind, and you, Evan Hale, have shown it clearly. Evan nodded slowly. Words failed him. All he could do was feel the weight of what he had done, the responsibility it carried, and the unexpected reverberations across the stars. By nightfall, her ship prepared to leave. I will return when the time is right, she said. For now, you rest, you continue. You live as you have always lived. But remember, the galaxy has noticed you, Evan Hale, and humanity will never be the same because of this moment. Evan watched the ship drift away, a silver streak against the black canvas of space. Stars sparkled in the distance, indifferent and eternal, yet somehow they seemed brighter now. Somehow they seemed alive, carrying the subtle promise of something greater. He returned to his repair bay, working quietly on the freighter that had arrived for service. But he knew he would never be the same. The universe had shifted around him, and in small, precise ways, humans had gained recognition, not through force, not through conquest, but through a simple act of decency. The days that followed were quiet, but rumors spread quietly, almost like whispers on the solar winds. Traders and travelers spoke of the human station that had been protected, that had survived when it should not have, that had been untouched by the wrath of an entire alien patrol. And all of it traced back to one man, one choice, one act of kindness. Evan worked, ate, and slept. Life seemed unchanged on the surface, but deep down he felt it, the subtle difference, the awareness that the galaxy had shifted, that humanity was being watched differently now. He did not seek glory. He did not desire recognition. He only understood that the universe, vast and dangerous as it was, had taken note. And in that quiet understanding, Evan Hale realized something profound. Sometimes being human was the greatest power of all. It was not firepower or fleets. It was choice. It was courage. It was kindness. And through one small decision, he had shown that humans could stand tall, even against the vast, indifferent. The calm that had returned to the outer rim lasted only a short while. Evan Hale could feel it even before any sign appeared. There was a subtle change in the currents of the galaxy, a quiet tension in the comm networks and merchant chatter. Ships moved differently, cautiously. Traders whispered, their voices low and hurried. Something was coming, and he knew deep down that it had to do with Celira. Then she arrived. Her ship appeared at the edge of the station's sensor range, larger, sleeker, and far more commanding than before. It moved with authority, its engines silent, precise. The hull gleamed, polished and unblemished, yet unmistakably deadly. Evan watched, heart steady, yet with a weight in his chest he could not explain. He had expected her return, but not like this. Not so powerful, so undeniable. The docking clamps extended and the ship attached itself smoothly. A soft hum resonated through the station. Evan walked to the docking bay, cautious but unafraid. The air was charged with a strange electricity. When the hatch opened, Celira stepped out. She moved with confidence now, every gesture deliberate, every movement elegant. She was no longer the fragile, injured refugee who had stumbled into his life. She was a figure of authority, a symbol of power, and yet her eyes softened when they found his. "Evan Hale," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You have waited well. You have done more than you realize, and it is time for the next step." Evan frowned. "Next step? I didn't ask for any of this. I only helped when I could." She tilted her head, studying him as if weighing his words. "That is exactly why you are worthy." You acted without expectation. You acted with integrity. That is rare, even among your species. Now you must understand what has been set into motion." She gestured toward the ship, and holographic displays flickered to life in the docking bay. Symbols and codes, complex and intricate, filled the air. Evan stared at them, recognizing none of it, yet feeling their weight, their meaning. These were not just commands or maps. They were a declaration, ancient and binding. By her authority, humanity had gained a position of respect across her people's civilization. "Protection?" he asked, struggling to find the words. Celira nodded. "Recognition, authority, your people will be untouchable in the regions controlled by my race. Any aggression against humans will be considered a breach of law, punishable by the highest order." Evan's mind raced. Untouchable. The galaxy had seen humans as weak, insignificant, easy to exploit. Now, it seemed everything had changed, yet he could not shake a small doubt. "And why me? Why not someone else? Why me alone?" "You chose to do right without thought of reward. That is the measure of true strength. You understand consequences without fear. You act with wisdom and restraint. Few of your kind possess this, and even fewer retain it when faced with power. That is why you, Evan Hale, were chosen to carry this forward." The words were heavy. He could feel the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. The simple act of helping her, done without thought for consequence, had now transformed into something far greater than he could have imagined. The sound of approaching ships broke the moment. Alien patrols, not Celira's own, had arrived. They were not hostile yet, but their presence was firm, investigative. They had sensed the change in the region. Evan's hand hovered over his blaster, but Celira placed a delicate hand on his arm. "Do not move," she said. "I will handle this." The patrols arrived, scanning the station. Their leader, tall and imposing, spoke in precise tones. "Human," the voice said, "you have interfered in matters beyond your understanding. Explain your actions." Celira stepped forward, her presence commanding enough to silence the patrols immediately. "These actions were just," she said, her voice clear and unyielding. "The human acted with integrity. His choices are recognized and protected by law. Interference is prohibited." The patrols paused, processing the information. Their leader's head tilted slightly, an unspoken acknowledgement passing between them. "Your authority is recognized," the leader said finally. "It is extraordinary." Evan felt a strange sense of relief, but also unease. The patrols departed, leaving the station in peace. He turned to Celira. "That was impressive," he said. She smiled softly. "Impressive is not the word, necessary perhaps, but you, Evan, are the reason this exists. My power carries your choice forward." For a moment the world felt still. Evan realized how fragile life was, how quickly circumstances could shift, and how one choice, small, simple, could create consequences far beyond imagination. Days passed, and the change in the galaxy became more evident. Merchant vessels moved freely through regions once controlled by her people. Human outposts received rare but critical supplies without interference, and even distant colonies felt a shift in their perception of humanity. Evan observed quietly, repairing ships, talking to traders, and noting the subtle changes. Recognition had arrived, but it was quiet, measured, respectful. Celira remained at the station for several days, overseeing minor adjustments, ensuring everything functioned as it should. Evan watched her work, noting how effortlessly she commanded respect, how her presence alone could alter the behavior of those around her. And yet, she never placed herself above him. When their eyes met, there was mutual acknowledgement, not reverence, not fear, but respect. One evening, they stood together in the docking bay, watching the stars move past. Evan's mind was filled with questions, yet he spoke simply. This changes everything. Why would someone like you care about one human, one small act?" Celira looked out at the stars, her expression unreadable at first, then softening. "Because one act can define many, because mercy and courage, even in the smallest form, are rare. They deserve recognition. And sometimes it takes someone like you to remind the galaxy what it means to act with integrity." Evan shook his head. "I didn't do it to be remembered. I didn't do it for power. I just did what I thought was right." "That is why it matters," she replied. "The galaxy respects action rooted in principle, not selfish desire. You have given humanity a reputation it has never held, a reputation that will endure." Their conversation was interrupted by a distant signal. A nearby human outpost requested assistance, not because they feared attack, but because they knew they were now under subtle protection, recognized by law, carried forward by Scifi's authority. Evan nodded, understanding the full weight of what had been set into motion. The next few days were filled with small but important acts. Traders moved with less fear, diplomats approached human stations for dialogue, and patrols hesitated where once they would have struck without thought. Each incident confirmed that the galaxy was watching humanity differently now. Evan continued his work, fixing ships and repairing engines, remaining as humble and grounded as ever. He did not seek recognition, nor did he desire fame. But he began to understand a truth that had been hidden in plain sight. Power without morality is fleeting, but morality with courage creates influence that even the stars cannot ignore. Scifi prepared to depart. Her ship glowed softly in the bay, ready to leave. She turned to Evan, her eyes holding a mixture of respect and affection. "I will return when it is needed. For now, your work is done, but remember, humanity has changed, Evan, and it will never be the same again." Evan nodded. "I understand, I just hope they live up to it." "They will," Scifi said, "because you showed them the way, because one human can define a path for many." She activated her ship's engines and lifted off, leaving Evan standing alone in the docking bay. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport, and the station felt different somehow, lighter yet heavier, as if the weight of the galaxy rested on unseen shoulders. Evan returned to his work, yet he felt the subtle shift everywhere he went. Traders greeted him politely, strangers paused to offer assistance, and even patrols moved carefully around the station, wary of interference. All of it traced back to one act of kindness, one simple decision to let a being go freely, to trust in decency over fear. In the quiet hours of the station, Evan sat alone, reflecting on the events of the past weeks. The galaxy had been vast, indifferent, and dangerous, yet through one small act, humanity had gained recognition, protection, and respect. Not through weapons, not through fleets, not through threats or domination, but through courage, integrity, and mercy. He realized then that this was the essence of being human. The ability to act with principle in a universe that often did not care, to show mercy when none was expected, to make choices that shaped outcomes far beyond immediate understanding. That was power. That was influence. That was legacy. And through it all, Evan Hale had played a role he never sought to play. He had acted simply because it was right, and the galaxy had noticed. The stars continued their endless journey across the sky. Ships moved through space with silent determination. Trade routes flourished quietly, and humans gained respect in a galaxy that had once ignored them. Evan looked out at the stars, understanding at last that his life, small and quiet though it might seem, had changed something far greater than himself. And in that understanding, he smiled, knowing that the universe had shifted in subtle, powerful ways, and that the ripple of a single act of decency could shape the destiny of many. The calm that had returned to the outer rim was deceptive. Traders still came and went, freighters docked and left, and stations hummed with routine activity, yet the air carried a tension Evan Hale could feel. Word of Scifi's actions had spread farther than anyone had expected. The human race, once dismissed as weak and inconsequential, was now a subject of attention across multiple star systems. Evan was repairing a small merchant ship when a signal interrupted him. It was unlike any other he had received. It carried authority, clarity, and an unyielding command. The message came from the Galactic Council, a body he had only heard about in whispered tales and recorded transmissions. They demanded his presence. Not in a human settlement, but on their station at the heart of a disputed sector. He hesitated. Humans had always been on the edges, observers, scavengers. To be summoned by the council was unheard of and not necessarily a mark of honor. It could have meant danger. They could question, punish, or even threaten his people. And yet, deep down, Evan knew he could not refuse. What had begun as a simple act of mercy had grown into something far beyond him, and he had to see it through. Scifi appeared in the docking bay as he prepared to leave. Her presence was as commanding as ever. "Evan," she said softly, "your time has come. The council expects you. They are aware of the ripple you have caused. What happens there will shape humanity's place in the galaxy for centuries. Do not underestimate them." Evan nodded, packing the essentials into his small travel bag. "I didn't ask for this," he said, adjusting his jacket. No, Salira replied. You did not, but your choices demanded it. You have acted with integrity. That is why you are here, and that is why you must speak. The journey to the council station was long. Evan sat in the small transport ship, staring at the endless stars, their light reflecting in his tired eyes. He thought of humanity, fragile and stubborn, often reckless, but capable of moments of courage and mercy that few could understand. He thought of Salira, who had carried his simple act across the galaxy, transforming it into recognition and protection. He thought of the ripple he had created and the weight of responsibility that now pressed upon him. Upon arrival, the council station loomed, immense and imposing. Its surface shimmered with energy shields, the colors shifting like a living organism. Aliens of countless races moved through its docking bays, each unique, each observing him with a mix of curiosity and caution. Evan stepped onto the station, his boots echoing on the polished floor. He was alone in appearance, yet the presence of Salira beside him gave him strength. Inside the council chamber, the delegates waited. They were tall, short, armored, scaled, smooth-skinned, and tentacled. Their eyes, whether singular or many, all focused on him. A hush fell as he approached the center. Salira stood beside him, silent but radiant, her mere presence commanding respect. One of the delegates spoke first, its voice cold and precise. "Human, you have acted beyond expectation. You interfered with our patrols. You assisted a fugitive of our people. Explain your reasoning." Evan stood tall, meeting their gaze. "I did what I thought was right, that's all. I didn't seek reward or recognition. I saw someone in need and I helped. That is all." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some delegates whispered among themselves. A few frowned. His words were simple, yet the clarity and confidence behind them could not be ignored. Salira's eyes met his, acknowledging his honesty. "You speak of simple acts as though they carry no weight," another delegate said. "You risked lives, defied law, and now demand judgment." "I do not demand judgment," Evan said. "I only ask you to recognize what humanity can do when it acts with integrity. We survive, we protect, we choose what is right even when it is difficult. We are not perfect, but we are capable of courage and mercy. That is what I represent today." Silence fell again. The council studied him, weighing his words, measuring the strength behind them. Evan did not flinch. He did not shout. He spoke simply honestly, and that honesty carried more weight than any threat, any plea, any demand could. Finally, the head delegate, tall and with eyes that shimmered like molten metal, spoke. "You stand before the council as a representative of your species. Yet your power is not in fleets or weapons. It is in principle. You have reminded the galaxy of what humanity can be. This is unprecedented." Evan swallowed. "I do not claim power. I do not seek it. I only acted because it was right." "Exactly," Salira said softly, her voice carrying through the chamber. "And for that, humanity has been granted recognition, protection, respect. Not because of force, but because one human acted with integrity when it mattered most. That is why Evan Hale stands here today, and why his choice will define humanity's place in the galaxy." The council paused, and then slowly, one by one, members nodded, some reluctantly, others with genuine respect. Their recognition was subtle at first, procedural, yet unmistakable. Humanity was no longer invisible. Humanity was no longer irrelevant. Humanity had a voice, carried forward by courage and principle, and recognized even by the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Evan felt a quiet satisfaction. He had done nothing extraordinary, yet everything had changed. The universe, vast and indifferent, had noticed a single human who had acted with honesty, mercy, and courage. That was all it had taken. After the formal proceedings, the council allowed Evan a private audience with Salira. They stood together overlooking the endless stars from a panoramic viewport. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Do you understand now?" she asked. "I think so," Evan replied. "One act and it changed everything, but I didn't do it to change the galaxy. I did it to help someone in need. And that," she said, "is exactly why it worked. You acted without thought for gain, without fear, without hesitation. The galaxy recognizes that. Humanity will benefit from it, not because of force, but because one human reminded the universe of what it means to be honorable." Evan looked out at the stars, considering the enormity of what had happened. Traders, patrols, diplomats, even hostile races, all now had to respect humans in ways they never had before. The subtle power of integrity had reshaped perception. Days passed as he returned to the outer rim. Ships moved with new caution and respect. Merchants sought him out, curious yet polite. Patrols adjusted their routes. Even distant human colonies noticed a difference in the behavior of alien forces. It was quiet, measured, almost invisible, but powerful beyond measure. Evan continued his work, repairing engines, replacing panels, listening to the quiet hum of space. Yet he felt the weight of responsibility. Humanity had been given recognition it had never known. That recognition could be squandered, or it could be used to shape a future where humans were seen as capable, honorable, and courageous. Celira visited occasionally, her presence a reminder that one small act could have consequences far greater than anyone imagined. She never spoke of power, never demanded loyalty. She only reminded him that principle, courage, and mercy were stronger than fleets, stronger than weapons, stronger than fear. One evening, as Evan watched the stars move past the station, he realized something profound. The galaxy had changed, not because humans had conquered it, not because they had destroyed it, but because they had shown what it meant to act rightly. That was humanity's true strength. That was their gift. He remembered her words, "Your choices matter even when you think they do not, even when you are alone, even when the universe seems indifferent." Evan smiled. Humanity had been noticed. Humanity had been respected. And all of it had begun with one simple act. Letting someone go freely, trusting that mercy and decency mattered more than fear or control. The stars stretched endlessly across the viewport, silent witnesses to the subtle revolution that had begun. Evan knew the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. They would be watched, studied, respected, and perhaps feared, but always with recognition. And in that quiet triumph, Evan understood what it truly meant to be human, to act with courage, with integrity, and with mercy, even when the universe seemed too vast to notice, and in doing so, to change the galaxy forever. Evan returned to his repairs, tools in hand, heart steady. The galaxy had shifted, but life went on. Ships would arrive, cargo would need moving, engines would need fixing. And in the hum of routine, in the quiet acts of daily survival, humanity would continue to grow, stronger, wiser, and respected across the stars. He looked to the stars one last time that evening. Somewhere out there, Celira watched as well. The bond they shared, forged in a simple act of mercy, had left its mark on the universe. It was subtle, quiet, and powerful. And it was a reminder that sometimes the greatest acts of strength were not those of firepower or domination, but of principle, courage, and heart. And so humanity rose, not with fleets or weapons, but with choice, integrity, and the quiet power of being truly human. And Evan Hale, who had acted without thought for reward, had shown the galaxy the meaning of that power.